Hello boys and girls, this is my top 5 from the weekend. First of all, it'd be good, I think, to talk about Manchester United, and not because of the reason that it's in all the papers, the absurd and ridiculous decision by some, I wouldn't call them fans, just criminals, to go to Ed Woodward's house and throw a flare. And did they forget that what they put on Twitter or in social media stays there, and the real world is a different story? Perhaps people are starting to forget that the real world is not the online world. Anyway, apart from that, there's something that's interesting about Manchester United, and it is the fact that I believe Ed Woodward is asking around, players included, what should be done with the team. Now, it has been a long while, this process, and I know that from the club the message is that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is to stay, that they've got full confidence in him. There's nothing else that can be said. You cannot show any kind of weakness when a manager is going through a tough period. It will show a weak leadership if you actually did that. But I do believe that the questions that are being asked to some players, this is some of the important players of the side, but also to agents and also football people that Ed Woodward is listening to, has to do with the fact that perhaps a move to get another manager could be a possibility, a solution. I don't think a decision has been made yet because these conversations are taking place, but it's interesting that it kind of differs, these stories I'm getting, differs from the official line from Manchester United. Is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer doing well? How can you judge it now? That is the first thing to say. Perhaps wait until the end of the season, and if he had his say and was the one deciding on his own future, he will tell you that he needs 2 more windows, this one and next summer, to actually be able to judge. He realized very early on that the squad had to recycle, that there were new names that had to come in. Bruno Fernandes, the arrival of it, even though Barcelona tried to get him part of a deal that meant that Rodrigo went to Barcelona. As complex as it was and as rushed as he was, that shows a lot more about the confusion that Barcelona is going through than anything else. But forced Manchester United hand, of course, and they went and put all the money that Sporting Lisbon wanted on the table. You know the details, 55 million euros plus adds on. So with a new midfielder like that, and this is not just a guy that has to, he will have to adapt, but is of immediate effect. This midfielder could actually have an immediate effect on Manchester United in one of the most weak parts of Manchester United's team. But all that is part of the process that Solskjaer wants to go through. As I said, Ed Woodward is asking around what is to do next. So the line is not as strong as it's been suggested from the club. And that means that every possibility it's open for Manchester United in the future, including getting perhaps one manager that right now is out of a job. We'll see. We already touched on Barcelona, and the thing to say is that they are, we say this in Spanish, we say huida hacia adelante. They're just running towards no particular end, but they just keep going forward, because if they stop, they realize what a huge amount of mistakes they are making. Not all of their own make, but a lot of them have to do with the lack of criteria right at the top. Because even though the likes of Abidal has been a Barcelona player, you wonder if he has the qualities to actually be a director of football at Barcelona with the peculiarities that the Barcelona has got. For instance, there is a style, there is an essence. For instance, they don't have money, not much money. So with that, you have to be very clever. And I'm not sure they've been absolutely sharp in the market. So they tried to get a forward, they said, somebody that replaced Luis Suarez. What does Luis Suarez do? He lives in the box. He links up with Messi. He does something out of nothing. He wouldn't be involved in the passing around, that's done by others, but he will run in behind all the time. A number 9. And they go and try to get Rodrigo, who plays in wide positions most of the time, who is a counter-attacking player most of the time, who will have to adapt to the style of Barcelona if he actually had come. It hasn't happened for the reasons we said before. They're still looking for a striker. It could be Loren of Betis. We will see. But in any case, it's yet another failure on the part of Barcelona, what they want to do to improve the side, with a manager that is also trying to put too many things on the table a little bit too rushedly. That's my favorite word. It doesn't exist. But actually, he's confusing the players that he's trying to organize on a pitch. So not easy solution to that, because he wants to do it that way. He's gone through videos, individual conversations this week. He's trying to convince everybody that the way forward is to actually improve on the good things that Barcelona did against Valencia. A defeat that perhaps was unfair, and I'm not sure everybody will agree with me, but there was enough chances for Messi in particular to score and get something out of that game. But defensively, they were very, very poor. The way that Barcelona attacks now is with 3 centre-backs attacking and distributing the ball. One of them, Sergi Roberto, who is not a centre-back. On the right-hand side, wing-back, if you like, one day attacking, Ansu Fati, who is not a wing-back. At the time they lost the ball, Valencia realized that was the weak point, and they attacked that way. Just a quick, basically, it meant that Barcelona was found out too many times. They have to adjust all that, and that's the process that Quique Setién is doing. A quick word on Celades and how he has adapted himself. Arrived with an idea, what he wanted to do at Valencia, 4-3-3, building from the back, etc. Players didn't accept it. He spoke to the players. Players said, we should just go back to what we've been doing. And Celades cleverly said, yeah, okay, we'll adjust little bits. And now you look at what Valencia is doing, the way they defend, the way they place themselves, and it's like Marcelino used to do. An example, when there is a cross from the side, from the wing, you will have one centre-back going a little bit away from goal, just in case that ball goes to somebody coming from deep, and the second centre-back just getting into the first post to try to stop the cross. Exactly as Marcelino was doing it, that's what Barcelona is doing as well. So cleverly, Celades has adapted to what's happening, including he could have lost Rodrigo, and he went like, it is what it is. I know the rules, and I know how it works at this club. Valencia need to raise 40 million euros by the summer, hence them trying to get rid of Rodrigo. Because Rodrigo is not coming, it looks like Paco Alcácer is not coming either from Borussia Dortmund. He's got offers from Villarreal and the Premier League, so let's see where he ends up. Big game at the weekend is the Madrid Derby, and we just heard that Joao Felix will not be there. And it's not terrible news for Atletico Madrid, because right now Joao Felix is not giving them what they need from him. And it is, I looked at this in detail, it is partly because he doesn't know what to do. Sometimes it's too deep, sometimes he's waiting for the ball next to the centre-back, so between the centre-back and the full-back, running in behind but doesn't get found. He does not know what to do. You see it in his face. He doesn't smile, he's frustrated. Compare his face to his time at Benfica when he was scoring goals against Porto, against Sporting Lisbon, and he became the superstar as a 19-year-old that he was at Benfica. You don't get that. You got an Atletico Madrid that's gone through a nightmare of a week, having lost to Eibar and then been knocked out in the Cup by a second B division side. That's the third tier of Spanish football. And then drawing against Leganés, who were bottom side in La Liga, 0-0 at the Wanda Metropolitano. Between the minutes 62 and 65, there were chantings in favour of Simeone and whistles at the same time. Not everybody accepts that Simeone is the man to take Atletico Madrid forward, as we've been discussing for a few weeks. Now I know that at the board level, they're a little bit fed up of Simeone as well, but he will leave whenever he wants to. Perhaps he should be brave enough and realize that he cannot do what he needs to do with his side, partly because he hasn't got the leaders on the pitch either. Why? Because the new generation of players are not like the ones that have left Atletico Madrid right now. So for Real Madrid, things are going well. They struggle against Valladolid because they don't have a goal scorer, somebody that goes like, boom, goal, that's it, match won. They don't have that. In fact, I think Benzema has not scored since December, and only one striker has been scoring since, and that's one goal from Gareth Bale in all competitions. So not good enough from the forwards of Real Madrid, and that's perhaps what will limit their possibilities in knockout competitions, even though against Manchester City I just don't see much going one way or the other. I cannot. Let's wait for another week before we start to decide which side I will take. But Real Madrid are doing very well because the goals are coming from other parts of the pitch, and because Zidane is adapting as a coach to actually whatever the game brings to it. So against Valladolid, they played in a diamond-shaped formation with Mitchell holding midfielder in front of the three midfielders and next to the two forwards who were actually defending as midfielders when they had to defend. And that meant basically that the three midfielders of Real Madrid were defended man-to-man, basically, couldn't break through that defense of Valladolid. So Zidane were like, okay, the way to respond to this is to actually attack down the wings. And that's what they did. They created more chances. The goal came through a set piece. Interesting always that in a corner, everybody's marking everybody. Everybody's very focused. The corner gets taken by Cross. The ball goes out again, and the ball it gets to Cross. So in that second phase of the attack, the marking gets forgotten. And then the ball comes in. Zidane had told Nacho, go to the first post when there is a cross in a set piece. He did that, heads the ball, and Nacho goes and celebrates with Zidane. Zidane, who hadn't played him for a long while, partly because he was injured, partly because others were ahead of him, but you can see what it means to everybody or what feeling there is within the side. So a fantastic derby in which, in my eyes, Real Madrid are slightly favourites. Well, Willian Jose is not going to Spurs, is he? And that has been something that has frustrated Imanol Alguacil, the manager of Real Sociedad, because Willian Jose, who basically was going to earn at Spurs double what he earns right now, decided not to play for Espanyol in the Cup. He actually told the club, I'm not going to play for this one. There's these things happening that Spurs want me, and so, yeah, I won't play. Imanol Alguacil, when he found out, rang Willian Jose, and funnily enough, you see players all the time on the phone, especially passing through the mixed zone, or when fans are close. Well, in that case, he didn't have his phone with him, apparently, and the manager was ringing and ringing and ringing and couldn't get through to him. Imagine. So he was obviously out of the Espanyol game, and then Imanol Alguacil said, this is in the Cup, and he said, you know what, I'll decide if he plays in the next one, and he didn't call him up. But Willian Jose realized at that point, at the weekend, that Spurs did not have the money to actually get him. He has a 70 million buyout clause. Spurs were putting on the table 15 million. You know how Daniel Levy does these things. He just goes and says, what, he cost 20? How about if I give you one? Would you give me the player? A lot of the time he gets no's. Sometimes he gets yeses. I think it's safely, you can safely say that the likes of Lucas Moura wasn't a Pochettino signing, was a Daniel Levy signing. He likes to do these things, get players from big clubs and see if they match whatever the manager needs. Well, a striker's what he needs, certainly. You know that they got in Bergwijn from PSV, a really good winger, but still looking for a striker. He will not be Willian Jose for these reasons. And the situation of Willian Jose right now is difficult at Real Sociedad because Isaac comes in, who is probably the number 2 striker, scores at the weekend, and now is the favourite to stay on. And Willian Jose will have to convince everybody, starting with the manager, that he wants to stay at Real Sociedad and that he will kill for that shirt, which doesn't seem to have been doing in the last few weeks. How about Cavani? Maybe at the time that you watch this, everything has been confirmed one way or the other. But it's been an interesting process here because Cavani quite clearly wants to leave PSG. His mother has said it, but he has shown to the club that he is willing to leave PSG and has even said goodbye, according to some reports, to his teammates already. The problem is, and his brother, by the way, who manages his affairs, is in Madrid sorting out houses and everything else. The problem is that even though Atletico Madrid are actually putting more and more offers on the table, nothing is happening. So they went like, how about 10 million? No answer. How about 15 million? No, it was actually 12 million plus 3 in adds on. No answer. How about 15 million? No answer. And the impression that everybody's got at the moment is that PSG are not interested in answering at all. Let's see if they get to 20 million and then they finally get an answer. But what PSG is saying is that, no, we need the player. Yeah, but the player hasn't played for a month or so. He was injured before as well. And he has been injured too. He hasn't had a great season. And he's got his head set in something else. And of course, you know, with Icardi and Mbappe and Neymar, who's scored in 8 consecutive weeks, I think, you've got enough. But they're thinking this could be the year where the Champions League is needed. And we would like to have somebody like Cavani, even though his contract finishes at the end of the season. So right now, Atletico Madrid are not confident that it could happen, but they're going to continue putting money on the table. Spurs tried it, Chelsea considered it, Manchester United inquired, they all were thinking, well, if he's available, and then they all realized that the cost of Cavani is 80 million euros for somebody who's going to be 33 in February. Now, Atletico Madrid, I think, as a club, are thinking, should we go that way? If they don't, it means that they're thinking about the future of Simeone, because Simeone wants Cavani, and like, has to be Cavani or Cavani. While Costa is little by little recovering, he's starting to run and will start to play for Atletico Madrid around mid-February. So keep an eye on Cavani, not just because of the future of Cavani, but also because he also means it will give you an idea of what the status of Simeone is right now at Atletico Madrid. And with that, we'll leave it there, and I'll speak to you next week. Thanks for watching.